Tuesday's MLB slate just might be the day to be betting some overs. Why is that? You're going to find out right here on First Pitch. And while you're hanging out with us, make sure you hit that like button. And if you haven't yet already, hit that little bell. Make sure you're subscribed here at WagerTalk TV. So, yeah, it might be Over Tuesday. And we'll start with our first over of the day. Adam Trigger joining us. And you want to take a look here at the Royals and Brewers. We're talking overs. This one might make you scratch your head a little bit because we're talking about a Brewers team who had a season-low 3 hits yesterday. Not 3 runs, 3 hits in yesterday's loss. You think bounce back might be imminent, at least them contributing towards this 9 total going over, right, Trig?
Yeah, well, that doesn't surprise me because no one's going to get many hits against Reagans. Like, he's awesome. And
yeah, I talked about that yesterday.
And their one hit, we did talk about this game on WagerTalk yesterday. Their one hit was a 2-run homer. The Royals ended up coming back to win the game. I did like the Royals in that game. I like the Royals here too, but I settled on the over as the angle I wanted to go with this game because I think you've got 2 starting pitchers here that are just unlikely to maintain their current form. And both of them revolve around low swing and miss rates, and specifically Colin Ria, who really has one of the lowest whiff rates in the league. Now, this is a guy that went over to Japan. He's come back. He's been much better, very similar to another guy I do like in Nick Martinez. But what we're seeing with Nick Martinez now that he's been back for a couple of years, the league's starting to figure him out. And this is Ria's second season back from Japan. He was very solid last year. And he's been solid this year. And I'm not saying he can't be like a competitive big league pitcher, but look at where his numbers are right now. 2.67 ERA, 1.22 whip. His expected ERA, Dan, that's a metric they measure. His expected ERA right now is 5.80. With the reason being, he just doesn't get much swing and miss at all. And, he's less than the strikeout per inning since coming back to MLB. And that's not going to work against the Royals, a team that hits the ball hard just about everywhere on the field. So this is something I started talking about last year. I mentioned it yesterday. The Royals had elite hard hit metrics as a team. They even last year when they struggled, they were way up the chain in terms of like collective hard hit rate. Bobby Witt and MJ Melendez the last 2 seasons have been among the top players in the league in hard hit rate for individuals. And they don't strike out much. They're near the bottom of the league in strikeouts. So you take, a collectively high exit velo, they're making contact, and mix it with a guy in Ria that gives up a lot of contact and barreled balls. And I don't see how you don't get a little bit of offense for the Royals here. On the other side, Seth Lugo is another guy that doesn't strike out a ton of batters. In 45 innings pitched, he only has 31 strikeouts, yet he's sitting here with a 1.60 ERA and 1.02 whip. And I think, Eric Woodard and anyone that follows baseball regularly and pitching, tracks pitchers regularly would agree you don't get sub 2 ERAs and whips around 1 in Major League Baseball without good swing and miss stuff, at least not for long periods of time. That's something that, hard contact's going to win out at some point. And I think that ultimately happens to Lugo, over the course of time, right? Like as we get a bigger sample and he continues to, give up hard hits and not get strikeouts, he's probably going to give up some runs. And that's one thing the Brewers, I don't think this Brewers offense is great. I talked about that yesterday. They have cashed in on run scoring opportunities. They have a run differential of plus 20. They seem to figure out a way to get the guy home from second, to get the guy home from third. The Royals plus 45 run differential tied with the Phillies. The only 2 teams better in the league right now are the Orioles and the Dodgers. I'm willing to call the Royals offense elite at this point. I've been saying it since the beginning of the season. I truly believe that this is one of the elite offenses in Major League Baseball and will be, throughout the season. And then you talk about the bullpens. Last 9 games, Brewers, 7.92 bullpen ERA. And this was always coming for this team. Look at all the pitchers that they have currently either out for the season, on the IL. DL Hall gets hurt, have to move Bryce Wilson into the starting rotation. That's one less bullpen arm. Devin Williams has been out since the beginning of the season. And it's going to catch up with them at some point. The Royals used a lot of high leverage relief the last 2 days, to get the 3-2 win yesterday. I think 3 or 4 top bullpen arms that have come in behind Reagans to close out that game. It's only 9. If you get to 4 from each side here, the worst you can do is push. I think there's going to be some runs in this game.
Man, we got some folks in the chat there. Trig, definitely agreeing with you. Tyler saying, agreed, Trig. Lugo looks like a crossing guard out there with all of his base runners. If the base runners can convert here into runs, that's why Trig's looking at the over 9 in game 1. Hop below in the comments. Let us know how you're looking to bet that one. Also, ask us any games you want us to touch on. Shocker, guys. They want us to talk about the Phillies game coming up here. We will do that. Questions on the D-backs. Some folks saying the Dodgers are a worthy inclusion on some potential parlays today. We'll be getting into all that and more. Shout out Have Cash, Raven Ron, Eric D, Tyler, everybody in the chat. Gooseballs. Yes, someone named Gooseballs joining us on YouTube Shorts. We appreciate you. Make sure you hit that like button. EP been waiting in the wings while we cashed the over on Trig's first breakdown on that one. I'm wondering for you, Mets and Cardinals. I had to do it to you, Trig. Mets and Cardinals. In this one, man, I think actually as I'm looking at the pitching matchup, this is the exact same matchup that we had that the Cardinals got the best of the last time that these teams, or not the last time, but the last series that they faced off against each other. You got to see this same Budo and Mikolas matchup. Do you see it shaking out a similar 4-2 final, maybe an under here? Because you really want to break down some potential matchups that could be good for player props and really how you're going to handicap this game as a whole. So EP from the Gold Sheet, let them know.
Yeah, so I have a lot of different ways to look at this game. Like Dan just mentioned, we want to talk more holistically about this matchup because you have an instance where Butto and Mikolas, these two pitchers just faced off on April 26th at Citi Field, day game. Butto, 5.2 innings, allowed 4 runs on 4 hits, 2 of those being home runs, 3 walks and 4 strikeouts, so one of his worst outings of the season. Then on the other hand, you have Miles Mikolas, who went 5.2 innings, allowed 2 runs and a home run, had 5 strikeouts. But I'm expecting a little bit of a different instance today. We have some good weather at Busch Stadium, and Miles Mikolas, he is really great at keeping the ball in the zone. He doesn't really walk a lot of batters, but he's second in the MLB in contact rate, 16th percentile expected ERA, 7th expected batting average, 18th in hard hit. He does not allow a ton of ground balls, meaning he is letting up these hard hit baseballs on the line or in the air. So he's a guy who, if you follow his career specifically last year, he's due to get exploded on. He's got a high FIP, high batting average against both sides of the plate, and in a small sample size, his FIP, XFIP, batting average against, hard hit rate are all higher so far at home this season. And this Mets offense, we saw them explode a little bit in Tampa Bay. Over the last 14 games against right-handed pitching, they're hitting the ball more in the air. They have a higher contact rate, a lower strikeout rate, and their expected weighted on bases over 3. Now, Jose Butto on the other end, much better advanced metrics than Miles Mikolas. 79th percentile expected batting average, 91st in whiff rate, and he does still get hit hard, doesn't allow a ton of ground balls, but his advanced metrics are doing great on both sides of the plate, while the St. Louis Cardinals lineup is an absolute drag to watch. 45.4% ground ball rate, 28.7% K rate against lefties over the last 14 games, low isolated power and OPS. This lineup has struggled. Now, here's where I'm getting into some of the bets I'm going to play. Now, New York, their bullpen is absolutely depleted after that series in Tampa Bay, and they have had no rest. So I'm looking at the Mets on the first 5 money line. I also like Luis Gil over 5.5 strikeouts because he had those walks, and a lot of them came on 0-2 counts, 2 strike counts. So a lot of some bad luck there, some umpire luck in that instance. So we only had 3 Ks in that game, but he is a pitcher who has hit 5 or 6 Ks often this season. And on the hitting side for the Mets, I like Brandon Nimmo and Francisco Lindor. They match up well with Miles Mikolas' pitch mix, and they're also hitting the ball at very high rates, and contact and hard hit rates are very high over the last 14 games. So I like a Mets stack early in this game. Again, Mets bullpen is great this season, but very, very short rest at this moment. They're really, really drawn out. So I'm looking at the Mets that come early and often in this one. So a nice Mets stack against Mikolas, and their second time seeing him in about a week.
So, EP, you kind of touched upon it there because there are some people in the chat that are saying this was already one Javi Cash. I took Mets first 5 here. Jock Cup earlier was asking any first 5 that we like. We do have some other first 5 wagers that we'll be talking about here on the show. So hang around, and while you're doing so, make sure you hit that like button. They point out, Tyler asked Javi if you're betting that, and it's similar for you. Why is it no full game on the Mets? Is it really just that usage in the back half of that bullpen that really has you worried? Or you just think, hey, as you handicap the game, it told you, take the bullpens out of it. Take Butto right out of the gate here. Why is it the first 5 as opposed to taking that plus 108 for the full game?
The Mets have players that have pitched every single day for the last 3 days, and this is the team that has not had a rest.
Yeah.
You look at guys like their best bullpen, Adam Ottavino, Edwin Diaz just pitched yesterday, Jake Diekman, like Sean Reed Foley, he'll probably be pitching today, but he pitched back-to-back on Saturday and Sunday. Maybe if Adrian Hauser, if they're converting him to a bullpen role, even though he's more of a starter, but I see him listed in my pen, like Jorge Lopez can go, but he's one of their he's actually been solid for them this year, but they are so they had great metrics, the Mets bullpen this year, but like the pitch counts over the last 3 days, the 52 pitches all the way down to 15 pitches. Everybody's been involved, and everyone's thrown back-to-back at some point. So that's a very tall task to ask for any major league bullpen.
WT.buzz/GS is how you can quickly find the gold sheet. Eric Pauly helping drop info on that wealth of information. You can check that out here at WagerTalk.com. We'll let you know some promos that we have going on here in just a little bit. We had a question here from Titans CT that I want to throw your way, Trig, here. Red Sox and Braves. It's Crawford and Lopez in this one. It's kind of a big price here on Atlanta, as they're hoping to kind of get back on the right path here. Boston, they finally had their bounce back over the weekend. So Boston and Atlanta, anything stand out to you in that one, Trig?
Pretty much what you said, the price being that big. Like, listen, I get it. Like, Atlanta is awesome. Like, they deserve as a team to be priced where they are. Like, they're absolutely a contender, arguably the best team in the National League. I know a lot of people would have the Dodgers up there. I would have them 1A and 1B at this point, just from like a long-term season perspective. But I still am not buying Ronaldo Lopez being this good. I mean, this is the start to the season he's got off to was insane. Like, for a guy that was essentially a reliever, I think he's like 30, 31 years old. Had been in Chicago as a bullpen guy, and to come out and have the April he had was just insane. Like, I have no other way to describe it, but I don't see how that lasts. Just, having the sample size we have on him, there's no way he can maintain that. It's just not possible, in my opinion. So you go back to his last start. Okay, now he finally got knocked around a little bit, right? Like, I believe that was a season high 6 hits he gave up against Seattle, season high 3 runs. My guess is we're going to start to see more outings like that. Like, his first 4 starts, 6 innings, 1 run, 6 innings, shutout, 6 shutout innings against the Astros, 7 innings, 1 run. But look at some of the teams he was facing. White Sox, Mets. That first week of the season, the Mets couldn't hit anything. Like, could not hit anything that first week of the season. That start was April 9th. The 16th, the Astros have been an unmitigated disaster so far for much of the season. And then the Marlins are arguably one of the worst teams in baseball. So some of his success has to do, he really got to face some of the worst lineups in the league. Okay, now he's got to go up to Seattle, gets knocked around a little bit by a Mariners lineup that's not even great. I mean, they're solid. Like, they're better than the first 4 I listed. And he gives up a couple runs. Crawford is the guy with the massive upside. Like, Cutter Crawford is going to be a very good pitcher, in my opinion. Like, long term, he's a front end of the rotation guy, and his numbers would suggest that's the case. 1.56 ERA, 1.07 WHIP, 40 strikeouts this season in about a strikeout per inning. That's what I was trying to get at. Is he's got a good swing and miss rate. So when I look at this number, I think it's too high. I would take the 1.5 with the road team. It's It's a little bit juiced, minus 135. But I would lean toward the Red Sox. It's hard to pass the Sox up at that price. Like, can't lay $2 with Lopez here, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering your thoughts, EP, on that one. I'm just checking out the total. It looks like this one's at least juiced. It's 8.5. Plenty of them still out there, but at some spots we are seeing some 9s there. But everyone's at least dealing, 115 towards the over. You even see some 20s out there as well. Any thoughts for you on this one as far as the total is concerned, or is this a game? You heard Trig talking about the pitching matchup here. Is this a game that you maybe look at a first 5 total or a first 5 side? Any thoughts in this Boston and Atlanta as far as side or total?
So I think Trig made some very good points there. Like, I don't think Ronaldo Lopez can maintain this level of success he's had for a majority of the season. However, it's not like this Boston Red Sox lineup, especially even over the last 14 days, is this like absolute juggernaut where they're expected to like really break out. And now we know the Braves' offense has been uncharacteristically poor for the last 14 or so days. Like, an expected weighted on-base average of a 265. That's really, really not good, especially knowing the people that they have on this team. And they're striking out a ton. But we also did mention literally last week on the show when Ronaldo Lopez was pitching in Seattle that it was a tough spot for the Braves, like coming off a lot of games in a row, traveling from the East Coast to the West Coast, and then having to play through some of those matchups. Now finally back in Atlanta. It's not something that I have any interest on right now, but I would prefer actually this game to be more of a pitcher's duel, and then I'd probably look to hop on the over in the next game because I think that these two offenses do have a lot of things that do go well for them. But new series is starting across the MLB this week. Obviously, some started yesterday. So I'm in kind of wait and see mode in some of these matchups, and Red Sox Braves is one where I'd like to see how this game goes, and then I'll try to attack it in game 2 if I see some things I'm looking for.
Yeah, I like that. Nothing wrong with just, sitting back and learning from what you can and then extrapolating that the rest of the series. Hop below in the comments. Let us know how you're eyeing that matchup or any other games that you're looking at for your card. Speaking of the chat, guys, I do have to shout out our man, Eric D. Not just because he's a fellow Philly fan, but he dropped in the chat yesterday and kind of got a little consternation from the chat. He said the triple P parlay. He had the Phillies, the Pacers on the spread, the Pacers spread, and then the Padres. So Phillies, Padres money line, Pacers spread. Ruzen was smart to point out that when I brought it up and kind of poked fun at it a little bit, he goes, I knew it was going to hit as soon as Dan made fun of it. So, hey, if I have to be the little nudge that people need to get their tickets home, that's what it's all about here, gentlemen. So shout out to him, man. Nice plus 440 price on that one. That's why we love chopping it up with you in the chat here. And from him watching and being subscribed here, he got some plays here on the baseball show on First Pitch. He tuned in on NBA Tip-Off, completed the triple P parlay with the info he got from Joe Ranieri and Brian Power on that show. Cashed a ticket on it. That's what we do here, folks. Make sure you hit that like button. But since we touched upon it, there are a bunch of people that want to talk the Phillies in this one. It's like consensus, guys, in the chat of Phillies. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I get it. Ride and win streaks because you can keep cashing tickets. You're only going to lose one of them, and then that's going to be when you maybe lay off it or you go right back to it. But it's hard for me not to think, EP, there's a pretty sizable pitching advantage for the road side here, but it depends what you get out of Berrios. I'd like to be able to just say, take that plus money. The Phillies maybe cool off here a little bit, but that hitting lineup, especially Bryce Harper, just keeps on hitting. When he has to deliver, he does it. It's Sanchez on the mound for Phillies. We're seeing Toronto money, and I get the chat's love for the Phillies. I think this is a pass game for me, but I actually lean towards the road side. What do you think?
So, quick digression. So, Jose Berrios a couple years ago was a very, very good pitcher. Then he had a terrible 2022 season, and everybody's like, okay, this guy stinks. But I was willing to, forego, one bad year in baseball. A lot of pitchers do have one bad year. What does he do last year? Comes back, pitches very, very well. Now, this year, he has great counting numbers. Like, he's getting out of these crazy, his runners left on base percentage is like absolutely ridiculous, and it is unsustainable. Looking at his advanced metrics now. Again, I was a Berrios backer when everyone was hating 2 years ago. Everybody loves him again, and his counting stats are there. look at his advanced metrics: 21st percentile expected earned run average and batting average, 4th in hard hit rate percentile. He's not striking out a ton of batters, doing pretty well limiting walks. And I just think Jose Berrios, a guy who I stood on the table for last year and was rewarded for, I'm ready to fade. On the other hand,
Wow.
I'm a big Christopher Sanchez fan. I like Christopher Sanchez. I know he had a tough outing against the Angels in his last matchup and the Reds in the one before that. But I think that some of what he did at the end of last season and to start this season is more indicative of what he does. He induces a ton of ground balls, 97th percentile, which is huge. His expected metrics are all kind of in the middle of the pack or slightly below. So we're not talking about a guy who's pitching well above his weight class. I think that Christopher Sanchez does not have a huge discrepancy, but the only one thing to note here is that the Blue Jays lineup is kind of a gauntlet for left-handed pitchers. Toronto has guys like now the addition of Justin Turner, with Dalton Varsho hitting as well as he's doing. Obviously, Bo Bichette has not done anything well, but if he gets hot, he's a guy with a contact rate like that is going to be tough against left-handed pitching. And their numbers say the same thing. They have a 313 expected weighted on-base average against left-handed pitchers so far and over the last 14 games, and their contact rates are up there. But Christopher Sanchez is a guy who induces a ton of whiffs and a ton of chases. So, again, not a bet that I'm running to the window to make. However, I am saying, though, that I am bullish on Christopher Sanchez over the course of the season. And Jose Berrios, again, so far this season, he's been in multiple situations where he's just 1 out away from getting shelled or getting out of the inning. And so far, he's done an amazing job getting out of the inning. But that cannot last forever. It can't be Houdini every single start. And the Phillies are just absolutely raking right now. So, again, something where I'm staying off at this moment. But I was on the Phillies yesterday, and it is a situation where I'm not looking to get off the train, honestly, anytime soon.
Yeah, 6 straight, 17 of the last 20, 10 in a row at home, and best record in the majors. That's what the Philadelphia Phillies are doing right now, Trig. I know you had something to add on that. Any thoughts there on the pitching breakdown in this one, and just what you were going to follow up with there? And next, guys, we'll talk about the Dodgers and Marlins game, because that's the second game everybody wants to pair in this Phillies parlay. So I want to get your guys' thoughts on that price with Yamamoto. But Trig, Phil's first. What's your thoughts?
I mean, listen, the Phillies kind of own me the last couple days. But I want to point out one thing from those two games. Like, the Phillies' offense was not great the last 2 days. They ended up with a 3-run, like a one big inning. So basically, they benefited from two things. One, the Giants kicked the ball all over the field. They kicked the ball all over the field on Sunday, and then Harper hit a 3-run homer. It was pretty much all the offense. And then yesterday, Bob Melvin inexplicably left Mason Black in well past the pitch count that he's had at any point in AAA. I get, like, it was a really poor decision, and it cost them 4 runs. Like, should have never happened. I'm not saying Eric Miller doesn't give up a hit to Harper, but should have had the lefty in there. It was a coaching mistake. And once again, the Phillies made him pay. But really, I mean, the last 2 days, it's not like they've just had runners all over the bases. Now, I don't disagree with what Eric is saying about Berrios. He's probably got a little bit of regression coming. But, he's been very solid. I still would agree that he's got some regression coming. But the Blue Jays, this lineup should be pounding left-handed pitching. So I'm not sure that I want to, like, the Jays are really this team. They're a team I've been on far too much the last couple of years. They constantly let me down. I don't know if I have any interest in coming back with them and needing them to win in this spot. Like, I don't know if the Jays would be a play for me, but I would not be surprised if they knock Sanchez around a little bit, just because that lineup should be elite against lefties. It should be so much better than it is, and specifically against lefties, it should be elite. So over 8 feels like, just putting those two things together, the over 8 feels a little bit low. Like, I think you're probably going to get a few runs there.
The first half of that breakdown, Trig, definitely sounded like a man who has been getting a little bit beat up by the Philadelphia Phillies. But I will say it makes sense. It makes sense what you're saying. But I do hear you. But man, I mean, It definitely, to me, again, this is probably more anecdotal than anything, but it does seem like when the Phils finally do find their bats, at least in this little run, it does come maybe once that starting pitching is starting to tire a little bit. It's around that fourth, fifth inning when you start seeing those runs stack up. So maybe Phillies in the first 5 is worth a look in that one. So people asking about first 5 plays, that's just a thought for me from watching this team. That's for sure. All right, guys, let's get into, and we're going to be on the pitch clock in this one because we're talking about a $3 favorite here. Yamamoto's on the mound against Miami. Is there any chance that Miami could be a parlay buster today, EP? Yes or no, and why?
No, just because this Dodgers lineup is too disciplined to get rung up. Like we saw Everett Cabrera, absolute animal. Love his stuff, but he's as wild as can be. You face the Rockies, you get 9 strikeouts because they're swinging and missing at everything. The Los Angeles Dodgers lineup is not going to be as swing happy as the Colorado Rockies, who lead the league, or one of the top teams in chase rate. And again, love Cabrera, but this is a matchup where I think Yamamoto is still being a little bit undervalued after his first start being terrible, second start being okay. Yamamoto is a great pitcher, and I do not see the Marlins having the ability to take over this game and win as, at this point, plus 255, plus 265 favorites. I mean, underdogs. Yeah, no, not worth laying it. I'm not playing the Dodgers straight. Parlay piece, sure. I prefer the Orioles if you're parlaying something, but yeah, that's how I'm going to look at that one.
Trig, I mean, if anybody could make a case for plus 250
I got
favorite,
nothing.
it's
Let's
you.
move on.
Okay,
I got nothing.
Thank you.
There's no point in talking about that anymore.
To talk about Bill Belichick, we're on to Cincinnati. I don't know. Do you guys get that emergency alert test there? Sorry to freak you out. So guys, let's. It's an emergency saying we talked too long about the Miami Marlins. So we'll talk here about the Cincinnati Reds. Chat's been bringing this one up a ton. It just seems like, and I agree with him. Zach Gallen on the mound. He's opposing Montes. This seems like a short number for the Arizona Diamondbacks. What's your thoughts on that, Trig? Short number here for Gallen. It makes a heck of a lot of sense to me to not get cute and just take Arizona in this game.
Man, so again, we're talking about another team that burned me over the weekend. I was rolling in Major League Baseball until this weekend and got completely burned by playing against the Phillies and trying to back the Reds. Two what turned out to be very poor decisions for me. The Reds just did not, they just aren't hitting. So the concern for me here would be, I mean, I don't know if I want to back the Reds when they just haven't hit at all. Now, they're probably going to hit at some point. And if you look at historical splits, they hit at Great American Ballpark. That's why it was so baffling to me that they couldn't at one point in time, the guys that they were up against, like Dean Kramer, I know some of these guys are off to good starts. Irvin, John Means, these are not tip-top elite pitchers. They're good. The Orioles being awesome makes them look better than they are, in my opinion. So yeah, that's my concern is they just haven't hit. Maybe a new face in the opposing dugout will help them a little bit. Sometimes it works out like that. Orioles leave town. They just couldn't get it right against them. D-backs come in. Maybe the bats get going. But, yeah, it would probably be Arizona or pass for me just because I need to see the Reds. The offense was so bad. The guys weren't even getting to second base. They had 2 scoring chances all weekend. I unfortunately had to sit through the entire series. It was hard to watch. So I need to see some offense from the Reds before jumping in. Now, I will say this. If the offense starts to show up tonight, I may look to get involved with the Reds with Ashcraft on the mound on Wednesday or with Hunter Green against Ciccone maybe on Thursday. However, Cicone's a guy I do like, so maybe more likely Wednesday. But if they don't, I might turn around and just play against them because, again, this offensive lull has been going on for a while. I thought they would break out at home against the Orioles. They didn't. So maybe this is just the collective sophomore slump for a bunch of guys that got called up last year, were insanely hot for longer than they should have been, and now maybe the league has figured them out a little bit. That's about all I've got on the Reds right now.
And Ruzen here in the chat. Shout out to the chat, by the way. Make sure you hit that like button and you're subscribed here. He says, I discovered an interesting baseball statistic today. If you pitched a volleyball at the Reds batters, there's still a 95% chance they'll strike out. That's some sabermetrics right there, guys. That's some sabermetrics.
The last four games, they've scored 4 runs. They've scored 4 total runs the last 4 games. 2-0-1-1. I mean,
no, that's what, and
it's
I know our guy Trig EP was a pitcher, but I feel like even he could at least get some contact with what you're seeing from this Reds batting lineup. But for you in this one, Trig, again, this is a tighter price, so this is a game that's worth talking about a little bit more here. We do have best bets coming up, and we'll roll with some more questions. So make sure you're staying with us here. But I know that you like looking at the analytics from every single angle. It's hard to shy away from, yes, I know it's a good price, but the road splits for Zach Gallen is maybe what keeps me away from just taking that minus 130 to the bank. That's what worries me. But then at the same time, EP, like Montes stinks. So what do I do with this pitching matchup?
Well, we also can't forget that Gallen's coming off a game where he left a little bit of an injury, so you don't even know. We haven't seen any tweets about if he has like an expected pitch count, and the Arizona Diamondbacks bullpen is still definitely not a good bullpen, even though they have a little bit of juice, but overall, like not a bullpen that you're dying to back. And take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt, because I'm not saying Zach Gallen is not a good pitcher, because that's just not a true statement. But Zach Gallen was one of my top regression candidate pitchers this upcoming season, based on those home and road splits that you mentioned, which are absolutely glaring. And the fact that when he does get hit, he gets hit very, very hard. And today, according to Ballpark Pal, at the Great American Ballpark, there is a plus 44% chance of home runs based on the weather going on at Great American Small Park. So overall, maybe a total of the over. I know that the Reds have been a team that have not scored runs. Trig laid out 2-1-1-0 in their last couple of games. Like, obviously that is not something that you want to back. I do agree a little bit that like this lineup was just kind of a little bit overhyped from the first place. Like Novelli Marte, who went out for PEDs, was probably as good as. So even before that, like Matt McLain, all the talk about Ellie De La Cruz, who has done a great job of shutting up some doubters so far this season. Like Matt McLain was the best rookie. He didn't even get to play an inning this season before he went out with an injury. Novelli Marte was a 3 prospect behind Ellie De La Cruz, and now he had the suspension. How much of that was PED related? His good stretch last year. Again, I guess we'll never find out. But this is just a team that, like, again, from top to bottom, like they're missing 2 of their arguably like top 5 best hitters, and they didn't even play a single inning this year. So it was always expected for the Reds to maybe not be as good as a team like the Cubs, who we knew, stocked up, and a team like the Brewers, who always find themselves to be in this mix. So a little bit of a digression there, not necessarily on the game, but I will say that Zach Gallen is on my fade list, not just on a way. Like in general, I'm not buying into anything Gallen, all things considered. And I could see the fact that, again, Gallen's not a huge ground ball pitcher, gets hit hard. Whether in Cincinnati, this is a good game to maybe target for FanDuel's Dinger Tuesday promo. If you bet $25 on one dinger on a player in a game, you get up to $25 back for every dinger hit in that game. So this could be a fun way to, if you have $25 is not a lot for you, and that's not like a lot of money for you unit wise. Get a little sweat, maybe look at some hitters to go yard in this one. And I had to look on the Cincinnati side before I looked at the Arizona side, but I'd look at both, and you could maybe basically be free rolling. Hopefully, if this does get to a higher scoring affair with a lot of dingers.
Yeah, I love that. I know the chat loves talking those promos, and actually the best bet coming up for EP kind of ties in for that Dinger Tuesday that you can bet on there. So we'll be talking Seattle and Minnesota in the best bets coming up here. Trig's going to talk Pirates and Angels. But first, we have a couple other games we want to get to. A lot of people saying this is a great spot for Oakland. It's still crazy to me, guys, and I know the run that they've been on, coming off the loss yesterday, but it's still crazy to me that here in May, we're talking about value spots for the Oakland A's. Just blows my mind with what we've seen as we near the quarter part. But it's Stripling on the mound. He's opposing Urena and Texas Rangers. They got the job done yesterday, and Oakland kind of looked more like the Oakland that we thought we would be seeing coming into this season, but they still got 2 across. Trig, anything stand out to you in this one? Because the chat is kind of split on how they like to bet this one. A lot of people wanted to take that plus money with the A's.
I guess I'll like defer to Eric here, just because this one was one I pretty much crossed off my list right away. I've looked for ways to back the A's this year, but for me, like Stripling's never been high on my list of guys I really want to back. So I don't really have a huge opinion. So I'll see if Eric's got something here.
Yeah, EP, what do you think about this one? Because again, I'd like to maybe think that Urena is going to have a little bounce back. He pitched on Friday in a loss to the Rays, but you just have to feel that this A's lineup and regression will continue. We saw a little bit of it yesterday. Does it continue, or are the A's a team that's primed for a bounce back, even though they're the Oakland A's?
So, I watched that game. I had the Rangers, and I'm sitting there sweating like, what the hell? I'm about to lose. I'm laying $140 on the road. Andrew Heaney, good pitcher. Then Corey Seager saves my ass in the 8th inning last night. But then they have the error in the top of the 9th, and that was more Oakland A's baseball. You finally saw them like coming back down to earth. Something I do kind of look at is like this Texas Rangers bullpen is not great in the first place, and Urena is a reliever. So like if he is getting into any trouble, this game plan for the Rangers is going to go downhill very, very quickly. You have a lot of arms available, and they're going to just need people to eat innings. I had a look at the Oakland A's team total over 3.5. It actually got juiced up. It was about 120 earlier this morning. Now it's sitting around 140. So something I'd maybe look at if you're trying to build maybe like a little same game parlay, try to get like close to even odds, maybe like an alt line, Oakland A's over 2.5 runs, and maybe add like a Nathaniel Lowe hit, so they don't have that direct correlation. I saw that on DraftKings around -105 because Nathaniel Lowe has been absolutely raking since coming back off the IL. Has good splits this year against lefties, and Ross Stripling, a righty, has good splits against righties, and Ross Stripling is a righty who has bad reverse splits against lefties, as you would expect. So I'd maybe, if you want to, mess around with a little same game parlay, alt line Oakland over 2.5 runs, then go with the Rangers hitter. I like Nathaniel Lowe. I think that was, again, -105. But in terms of full game on the money line, like the A's bullpen is pretty beat up. Obviously, if they do get to that Mason Miller zone who's available, like nobody's touching him, that kid is absolutely electric. But this Rangers team, man, they're just not hitting the baseball, and it's hard to back. Langford going, that doesn't help. Lowe has obviously been kind of a heaven sent, but very similar story last year. I'm not out on the Rangers just right now. They're not hitting. They're not pitching. Their bullpen's not doing that great. So they're not a team that I'm dying to lay even a short price on the much better team. I'd rather concoct a little SGP like I mentioned earlier.
We love hearing it. Hop below in the comments and let us know any same game parlays that you're concocting this evening. And while you're down there, make sure you hit the like button to these guys touching upon damn near every game on the card here live on First Pitch. It's what we do, and we still have best bets coming your way right this moment. Adam Trigger, let people know what you got rocking over at WagerTalk.com, and also let them know what you think about this Pittsburgh Pirates and LA Angels game. The Pirates finally got to flex their muscles again. It's been a while since they've been able to say that since the beginning of the season, but a 4-1 victory, and you think they just might be following it up with another win. Why is that?
Yeah, so over at Wager Talk, in probably about 20 minutes, as soon as we're off the show, I will have a KBO play posted that goes in the morning. Just waiting for the line to be widely available, but I'll definitely have a play there. Dan, I'm probably taking the day off in MLB. I had a couple of days where nothing went my way, so I need a little bit of a reset day. But I'm going to be posting minor league baseball probably over at my Twitter page all day. I have a couple of opinions there. Those will be free. The KBO play will be up for sale in probably about 20, 30 minutes. It's a spot I really like a lot. And again, Major League Baseball, it's a long season. Don't have to have a play every day. But if I was to pick one that I have the strongest opinion on, it would be the Pirates. So I think they're in a good spot overall following the complete game from Mitch Keller last night. He went the distance. And, the bullpen, if you go back to last year, the bullpen for the Pirates was a big, arguably the component of their start to the season. Like the Pirates last year had a very good first half, very good the season's over. And I almost feel like that hasn't got as much attention as it should. The Angels are really bad. Like, if you were to put the Angels and the Marlins, like, side by side right now, just take the logos off and just put Team A and Team B, those two teams don't look that much different on paper. Yet here we are with the Marlins as, like, just a huge underdog on a nightly basis. And the Angels still get priced as like a semi-respectable team, which is something I'm willing to play against. Now, Quinn Priester's a guy I like quite a bit. He's someone that I had circled to like play on when he got called up. Fortunately, I've only done it once because he's really had some bad luck. The Pirates have lost all three of his starts, even though he has a 3.31 ERA over those starts. But the reason I like Priester, off season, he went and really worked on his curveball, to the point where early in the year at Indianapolis and AAA, he was getting really good swing and miss on it. Now, since he's been called up, he's made a couple mistakes with it that got hit out of the ballpark, but that's really the only thing he's done wrong. He's only given up 6 earned runs in 3 starts. All 6 of them are solo homers, and it's typically when he hangs a curve to a big league hitter. Can't do that. Can't do that in the big leagues. You hang a curveball, most of them hit it out of the ballpark. But everything else has been great. His ground ball rate is awesome. I really think he's going to end up turning into a pretty solid pitcher. And so for me, like, when I look at him next to Sandoval, I mean, you're getting the much better pitcher with Pittsburgh. Like, at this point, Sandoval's kind of a mess. Like, ERA is near 6. The WHIP is 1.7. He's good for the occasional gem. He'll pull the occasional gem out, but the Pirates hit lefties better than righties. So, if the Pirates didn't win last night and they weren't laying such a price here, it's still tough for me to lay $1.30 with the Pirates because I still don't know how in I am on them as a team. But I really like Priester, and I really don't like this Angels team. So strongest lean for me tonight is the Pirates. I'm willing to fade the Angels pretty much at all costs right now.
Fade them at all costs. Pirates decide for our man Adam Traeger. You can check him out, wt.buzz/AT. All right, Eric, Pauly, you're going to get the final word here on the show today as we look at Seattle and Minnesota. You have a couple different ways that you want to attack this one, but the total in the first 5 is the one that's most intriguing. And also tell folks about the great wealth of information they have over at goldsheet.com and what's rocking over there. Let the folks know all about that and how we're going to be betting this Seattle and Minnesota game.
Yeah, so first things first, on WagerTalk.com, wt.buzz/GSL. That's the Gold Sheet Lite. It is a free MLB betting guide every single day. Pitchers, hitter splits, nerfy and yerfy statistics as well. Free plays given out, player props as well as actual game lines, first 5s, all things included. Free, updated head-to-head matchup notes, trends, and more every single day. wt.buzz/GSL every single day. Literally just click download and you have that information for you at your fingertips. And the game I wanted to talk about, so Seattle, Minnesota, right? Yesterday, I was on Minnesota as a slight home dog against Castillo, which ended up working out for me. But one of the things that is so frustrating about these two teams and like absolutely beyond infuriating is their inability to score with runners in scoring position because these teams are the 3 true outcome teams. They're striking out, they're hitting dingers, or they're walking. Now you have a matchup between Emerson Hancock and Bailey Ober, and these are 2 pitchers that actually play in so well to these 2 teams' strengths, which are, putting up some quality at bats. They're not swinging and missing at the ball and hitting the ball in the air. Now, both of these pitchers do not allow a ton of ground balls. Their most common hit balls are fly balls in the air. And over the last 14 games, Minnesota and Seattle both have a 28.4% and 30% respectively fly ball rates. Now, both of these teams allow a lot of both these pitchers, I should say, allow a lot of barrels. Ober does a good job of allowing more soft contact, so he's not getting hit as hard. But the way that I expect this game to be going is if we can get, a walk or 2 to get a guy on, I would expect there to be a couple of solo or 2-run shots early in this ball game because these are guys who are not letting the ball get put on the ground. They're teams that like to lift the ball. These are pitchers that pitch to the lift, and that is a combination for runs in a target field where there's an environment where there could be some dingers. And some guys I'm looking at, Ryan Jeffers as well as Carlos Correa for the Minnesota side, I think that they're good looks because Hancock's splits against righties are not great. and over again, also not as good against righties. Maybe Julio Rodriguez obviously hasn't had a great start, but he's been heating up a little bit to hit one as well. So this is another game I target for Dinger Tuesday. I know that this promo, it varies by state, but some states you could do multiple games. So again, if $25 to your bankroll is, not something significant, you have the opportunity to get some of that back in free bets. So I would look at, like I said, I mentioned that game earlier, the Reds Arizona game, and also Seattle Minnesota for that. And best bet would end up being this matchup: Seattle at Minnesota, first 5 over 4.5 runs.
Going over in the first 5. That's Eric Pauly with thegoldsheet.com. Check him out on Twitter at Slime Action. You can find Trig at Top Flight SI. His best bet was the Pirates over the Angels on the money line. Huge shout out to the chat. Trig, if you need a confidence boost here on a Tuesday afternoon, we did have Mo Harris in the chat earlier that said Trig's looking like a snack today. So if you could take with that and do with that what you will, brother. But I figured, it couldn't hurt. Maybe that'll help the bounce back for you. That's Adam Trigger. That's Eric Pauly. I'm Dan Alexander. This is another edition of First Pitch. Rolling to a close, guys. You're viewing us live here, almost 200 plus people watching live. Hit that like button. It doesn't take but a second. We greatly appreciate it. And make sure you're subscribed as well so you can get all the content here on WagerTalk TV. If you're watching us on the rewatch, don't have to go far. You can click the video on your screen right this moment. Keep getting all that info you need to cash on the sports you love. We'll see you next time with a little more money in our pocket. Best of luck, everyone.